evening, everyone, and I am going to call this meeting to order on August 12th, 2020. Welcome to everyone who's able to watch us tonight and to those who are joining us. We're going to get started tonight with our roll call, and I'll ask the city clerk to do that for us, please.
Commissioner Abraham?
Present.
Commissioner McElroy?
Present.
Commissioner Watkins? Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Mayor Harless?
Present. And Commissioner McElroy, would you lead us in the invocation again tonight, please?
I would be glad to. Let us all pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, I'm reminded today how important community is and how we are missing that in our society as we go through this pandemic. And I pray that you will help us all know how to reach out to one another, especially the elderly and those who are challenged, that we might reach into their lives and be able to help them and connect them to community in creative ways. Father, we do pray for those who are suffering with this illness right now as we continue to battle it. You will bless the healthcare workers and bring healing to those people. Father, we also pray for those who stand in harm's way for us every day, for our fire department, for our police force, for our first responders in terms of medical care, that you would bless them and their families and protect them as they work to protect us. We also are reminded of the challenge with our schools, and we pray for our administrators to make wise decisions. Just give them everything that they need to make those decisions. Bless families, bless children, provide daycare where it's needed now when it wasn't expected. And we just ask, Father, that your sovereign will would be accomplished in our world today and that your glory would be seen. And that, Father, we would remember the joy of the Lord is our strength. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Abraham, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I will. 3, 2, 1. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. City Manager, are there any deletions or additions to the meeting tonight?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we are deleting the presentation, though.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought that was already removed. Yes, there would be no presentation tonight from the Midtown Alliance.
Okay, thank you. And then I think Mr. Chino probably covered this before we started officially, but just for those that are on for public comment, we will keep you muted until it's time for you, and then you can turn your video on and unmute yourself and be able to do that. So we'll get to that towards the end of the meeting. We're going to move into the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine business by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests. Does anyone have anything they would like to discuss tonight separately? No? All right. With that, I'm going to ask the city clerk to read the items recommended for approval, please.
Receive and file documents, personnel actions, a municipal order approving the interlocal agreement between the City of Paducah and the McCracken County Fiscal Court for the administration of a 2020 through 2021 Kentucky Household Hazardous Waste Grant Award and authorizing the mayor to execute the interlocal agreement. A municipal order amending municipal order number 2340 entitled A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Grant Application and all documents necessary for an FY 2020 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Accountability Grant through the U.S. Department of Justice in an amount of $13,094.65 to be used by the Paducah Police Department for the purchase of 5 handheld radios, to change the application amount to $11,316 and the number of proposed handheld radios to 4, and authorizing the acceptance of all grant funds awarded.
Great. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. City Clerk, would you call roll, please?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Oh, Commissioner Wilson, you were on mute.
Gonna push that button. Aye.
Mayor Harless?
Aye. Okay, Lindsay, did you get your glass of water before you're about to read this next one?
I am ready.
Okay, would you please read item 2A for us?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, authorizing the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2020B, in the aggregate principal amount of $2,945,000, subject to a permitted adjustment increasing the size of the bonds by up to $295,000 or decreasing the size of the bonds by any amount for the purpose of refunding the outstanding City of Paducah, Kentucky general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2010B, maturing on or after June 1st, 2021, the proceeds of which were used to refund the original cost of financing the expansion of the Julian Carroll Convention Center and the construction of the Four Rivers Center for the Performing Arts. Authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of an amended and restated interlocal cooperation agreement by and among the City of Paducah, Kentucky, the County of McCracken, Kentucky, the Paducah Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Paducah McCracken County Convention Center Corporation, and the McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission in connection with the issuance of the bonds. Approving the form of the bonds, authorizing designated officers to execute and deliver the bonds, authorizing and directing the filing of notice with the state local debt officer, providing for the payment and security of the bonds, creating a bond payment fund, maintaining the heretofore established sinking fund, authorizing acceptance of the bids of the bond purchaser for the purchase of the bonds, authorizing other actions in connection with the issuance of the bond, and the plan of refunding and repealing inconsistent ordinances. This ordinance authorizes the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds designated as Series 2020B in the approximate principal amount of $2,945,000 by the City of Paducah, Kentucky. The bonds are to be issued for the purpose of refunding the city's outstanding general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2010B, maturing on or after June 1st, 2021, the proceeds of which were used to refund the city's general obligation bond, Series 2001, Convention and Arts Center projects, the proceeds of which were used to finance the cost of an expansion of the Julian Carroll Convention Center and to construct the Four Rivers Center for the Performing Arts. The ordinance further authorizes the execution and delivery by the city of an amended and restated interlocal cooperation agreement by and among the city, the County of McCracken, Kentucky, the Paducah McCracken County Convention Center Corporation, the Paducah Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the McCracken County Sports Tourism Commission. Pursuant to the ordinance and the interlocal agreement, certain transient room taxes to be received from the Bureau and certain county payments will be pledged as additional security for the bonds. Provisions are made in the ordinance for the payment of the bonds and the security therefore, for the application of the proceeds of the bonds, for the establishment of the bond payment fund, for the maintenance of the previously established sinking fund, for certain covenants of the city with respect to the bonds, and for the execution of such additional instruments as shall be necessary to accomplish the plan of refunding. The bonds are to be sold at public competitive sale and shall mature or be subject to mandatory sinking fund redemption in varying amounts on June 1st of each of the years 2021 through 2026. The bonds pledge the full faith and credit of the city, and provision is made for the collection of a tax to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, subject to certain credits as provided in the ordinance and the interlocal agreement. As required by KRS 83A.060, the following Section 7 of the ordinance is set forth in its entirety. The bonds shall be full general obligations of the city, and for the payment of the bonds, and the interest thereon, the full faith, credit, and taxing power of the city are hereby pledged for the prompt payment thereof. During the period the bonds are outstanding, there shall be, and there hereby is levied on all taxable property in the city, in addition to all other taxes, without limitation as to rate, a direct tax annually in the amount sufficient to pay the principal and interest on the bonds, when and as due, it being hereby found and determined that current tax rates are within all applicable limitations. The city shall be and is hereby ordered, computed, certified, levied, and extended upon tax duplicate and collected by the same officers in the same manner and in the same time that taxes for general purposes for each of the years are certified, extended, and collected. The tax shall be placed before and in preference to all other items and for the full amount thereof provided. However, that each year, to the extent that other lawfully available funds of the city are available for the payment of the bonds, including amounts available under the interlocal agreement and are appropriated for such purpose, the amount of such direct tax upon all of the taxable property in the city shall be reduced by the amount of such other funds so available and appropriated.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, City Clerk. You did a great job at that.
Yeah.
So once again, that was a long-winded way to say we're going to save money. And we're going to have a lower interest rate on the bonds that are already on the books from many years ago. So hopefully if anyone has to learn any more about that, you can find that ordinance on our website and read that entire thing. Does anyone have any questions for our staff about this item? I think this is the third time we've heard it now. So hopefully we're all familiar with what's going on here. We're good? Okay, I'm going to ask the city clerk to call roll, please.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. Okay, moving on ahead. City clerk, would you read item 2B for us, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-6-8641 entitled, an ordinance adopting the City of Paducah, Kentucky annual operating budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the annual budget for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021, as adopted by ordinance number 2020-6-8641, be amended by the following reappropriations. Transfer $141,000 from the FY 2021 Fleet Trust Fund fund balance to the Fleet Trust Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions about this item? Okay, with that, I'm going to ask the city clerk to call roll, please.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. And city clerk, would you read item 2C for us, please?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending section 126-76 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, pertaining to electronic signs in the MU and A1 districts. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance accepts and adopts the recommendation of the Paducah Planning Commission to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky to allow electronic signs in MU and A1 zones under similar standards as the B2 district, with one additional standard proposed, which prohibits changing of the message between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. to prevent any flashing during sleep hours.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? No? Okay. City clerk, will you call roll, please?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. And item, looks like we're on 2D, please.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending section 126-176 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky to provide for an alternative rezoning approval process, renaming of the section, expanding notice requirements, and reordering and renumbering of the section. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance accepts and adopts the recommendation of the Paducah Planning Commission to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky to allow for an alternative map amendment process to provide for added efficiencies. This amendment would allow for Planning Commission recommendations for map amendments to become final 21 days after the Planning Commission's decision if there are no requests that the application be brought before the Board of Commissioners. Further, this ordinance cleans up certain language, including the renaming of the section, organization of the section, and expanding the legal notice parameters and the amount of time given.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions about this item tonight? We have heard also from our planning director on this a couple times now. And I'll just tell you, I think it's I really appreciate the work that's going into thinking about some of these old zoning ordinances that we have on the books. And we know that this commission's goal is to make sure that we become a business-friendly city. And this is part of that, is to start to look at some of the old things that are on the books and start to bring them up to date. So I appreciate the work of our planning department on that. If there's no other comments or questions, I will ask the city clerk to call roll, please.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner McElroy,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. And I'll ask the city clerk to read item 2E for us, please.
Proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, authorizing and approving a city block development agreement between the City of Paducah and Wayland Ventures Development, LLC, for development of a boutique hotel, parking, open space, and mixed-use residential building located at the city block bounded by 2nd Street, Broadway, North Water Street, and Jefferson Street, declaring the real property to be surplus property, authorizing the associated property transfer, and the execution of all documents relating to same. This ordinance authorizes the mayor to execute a development agreement with Wayland Ventures Development, LLC, as amended by motion and vote of the Board of Commissioners on August 11, 2020, for a city block boutique hotel, parking, open space, and mixed-use residential building located at the city block bounded by 2nd Street, Broadway, North Water Street, and Jefferson Street, and authorizes the associated property transfer to Wayland Ventures Development.
So moved.
Second.
Absolutely great. Any comments or questions about this item tonight?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Okay.
The first has to do with the contract, and then the second one has to do with the site itself. When we enter into negotiations with developers wanting to do business in our city, the developers are at the table and they are looking after their own best interests. They're us being stewards of the city. I would assume that we would be at the table looking after the best interests of our city. And we say that, I read that a lot in these documents, it's in the best interest of the city. But the more I read this contract, especially the negotiation part, it became pretty clear to me that these conversations, these negotiations were in the best interest of the deal, not necessarily the best interest of the city. I'm looking at a document here where our council has proposed some items within the contract that would greatly benefit the city. They didn't make it in. Well, the only way they didn't make it in is because they weren't negotiated in. So my question to the city manager, who negotiated for us? Who was in the room when these negotiations were going on? That's to the city manager.
It's got to unmute.
Wasn't letting me unmute. The space bar was not working.
Okay, the question was,
That's
during
I heard you, Commissioner.
Okay.
That's the problem. Yeah, basically, we had multiple sessions of negotiations. Myself, Katie Axt, and the mayor actually worked on this together as a negotiating team. And then towards the middle of the negotiations, over a long period of time, I stepped away from that negotiating team, then pulled back in towards the end of the negotiating team on this deal. And we did negotiate these terms in the best interest of the city. It's a good contract. It's one of the better contracts I've been involved with. The terms you're mentioning that were on there from our city attorney, yes, if we could have got all those on the agreement, that would be a wonderful agreement, an ideal agreement. But through my experiences, that's why you negotiate. You basically do what you can to do the best for the city. Looking forward to working with the developer.
that sounds great, but there's no attorneys in the room. I mean, I know you're a professional manager. You talked about our planning department was represented. The mayor is represented, but I don't see any law degrees there.
And then during the negotiations I've been involved with, just like we did with the union negotiations, no attorneys in the room. You can make a philosophical choice to have an attorney present to help you with legal advice. Mm-hmm. It comes down to a policy decision, based upon the professional staff and the recommendations we give to the elected officials.
Right. Well, we have attorneys that we taxpayers' dollars ago, we pay for their services. We pay for their services because they're specialists. They understand the difference between shall, and may. They understand that kind of thing. So I hear what you're saying, city manager, but when you talk about working deals in the best interest of the city of Paducah, and we use this word team a lot, right? I understand that concept. But if I'm mayor and I'm coming into this room, I'm flanked by, first of all, the attorney, second of all, the engineer, then we have planning, and we have our financial guy, city manager included. I don't see, we talked about the utilities, right? Was Rick in the room? That's 25 years of experience as an engineer. Was he in the room on that?
No, he was not. He was not in the room. And again, this is a philosophical choice. You know, if you were the mayor and you wanted that to occur, I mean, we could have did that, but that was not the direction that our team was given. We went into this process.
I'm going to jump in here since you're saying my title a whole lot, Commissioner Abraham, and making a lot of assumptions about how things happened. If you recall, in the preliminary development agreement, there was a utility study required in order for this decision to be made. So there was expert assessment done on the amount of utilities, the utilities that are on the site, not on the site, up to the site. So that was used in the conversation and in the negotiation. So this was not blind. There was definitely attorneys involved in this entire process. We as a commission had multiple executive sessions when our team brought us specific points that they asked our opinion on. They asked our concerns. They asked us to express the deal and the terms of the deal. That was part of the process of coming up with a development agreement. It was then handed to an attorney, so an attorney could put it in a form that protects the city from the legal perspective. So, you know, I appreciate, I just want to make sure that we remember how long and complex the process is of negotiating a development agreement. It is. And just because there's not an attorney in the room every single time does not mean that we have not engaged our expert attorneys who have said to multiple people on this call, this is one of the best deals they've ever seen in the city of Paducah. So I will allow you to continue if you will, but I just want to have the opportunity. You keep addressing the city manager, but you keep saying my title. So I want to make sure I'm involved in this conversation as well.
Yeah, feel free to jump in at any moment. That's fine. Our attorney talks about there are some provisions which could be inserted into Wayland's proposed agreement. Well, who's driving the bus here? That's Wayland is saying, look, this is what we want. Now, I'm reading this document, certain things that we didn't get, that our attorney, our expert says that would have been ideal if we could get that. That didn't get in. I'm reading that sentence there, and Wayland's like, this is what we're proposing. So I just want to make sure that I hear what everybody's saying, that attorney doesn't have to be in the room, but it's been my experience that when you are talking about multi-million-dollar deals, you want to make sure that you have the best deal for the city that you represent. I don't understand how you can have the best deal when you don't have the best people in the room.
Well,
Excuse me.
I hear what you're saying there, Commissioner Abraham, but I believe that we had a fantastic negotiating team in the room, and I believe this deal is the best deal in the room, and I apologize to you if you don't agree with that.
Well,
Commissioner
yes.
Abraham, on last Friday, Commissioner McElroy and I met with the city attorney, and that was Tom Kohler that did this contract. Mm-hmm. And I believe that was probably one of the first questions. According to my notes, that was one of the first questions that we asked him about him being in the room. And his answer to us was that he had drafted the first agreement. It was typical for the city to take over the negotiations at that point, and he came in at the end to finish the deal. And he said that was the typical negotiations. He also said this was the most conservative, city-friendly agreement that he has seen in his, I think, I didn't write his number of years, but 40 plus years with the city. And he had negotiated all of the land agreements. He also said, and I'm hesitant to say this because they are paying for the land, he did say he had not seen an agreement where the developer paid for the land until now. And he said multiple times that we asked him about things that could or couldn't be put in or why they weren't, and he explained all of that. The note that he just sent to us said these are some provisions which could be inserted. He did not say they should be inserted. He said they could be. Those were part of the negotiation process.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if he was when we negotiated with the Holiday Inn many years ago, another multi-million-dollar project. I don't know that the attorney was in the room every time that was talked about at then. And so, but he did say that this was the typical way it was handled, and it was a very city-friendly agreement to protect us.
Well,
He also said that he couldn't imagine that anybody would be against it. He said it was such a pro-city economic development deal, he could not imagine that. Of course, that's his opinion, but he was very strong on this being city-friendly and a great economic opportunity and a great business partner as well. And he said, you know, you're always going to lose some things in a negotiation. That's how it goes. That's why you negotiate. And he felt like it had been negotiated well, and we came out at a very good point.
He also, I mean, he started in the history back to probably 40 years ago with projects that he had been involved with negotiating. He went through all this one line by line with us. I don't know if you've had that opportunity to sit down and meet with him to go over this agreement in detail with him. But after that meeting, I felt even more confident. I felt confident before. I felt more confident then that we were being protected. One comment that he made, we amended the agreement last night to take care of. And that was, he did mention that part about having an upper limit, the actual cost of the part of the remediation, that we could add that to strengthen it. So we amended it last night to do that for several different reasons, to make sure that everyone was comfortable with it.
Well, everything that I read here this is what he said. I'm not making anything up. I'm not putting words in his mouth. So I'm reading the agreement, and I'm reading what he said. So yeah, I see where you and Commissioner McElroy met with last week. I see that. But I wasn't in that meeting. Couldn't have been legally, since it would have been three of us. But I'm reading what he talked about was not in the meeting, was not in the deal. He talked about it would have been great if it was in there. And I'm only thinking that if he says that, it would have been in the best interest of the city if they were. But he wasn't in there negotiating. Our city manager and the mayor and our planning team were in there. So let's move though. Let's move on.
Well, I don't see where he said it would be great if it was in there. I see where he said it could be.
I see it says ideal.
Yeah, I think that's where we started, and he was just making us to be sure that these were the things we did not get after the final negotiations. He's making that very clear and transparent, and I think that was the purpose of that memo.
Actually, Jim said that. Tom did not.
Jim, yeah, it was from Jim. Yeah.
I would also just like to point out, Commissioner Abraham, that last night we had the opportunity to amend the agreement to take into consideration Tom Quiller's ideal circumstances, and you voted against that. So I don't really know where this is coming from, because last night we had an opportunity to take care of one of those situations, and we did. And I'm glad that we did, because it was the right thing to do, to take Tom's advice and to take the concerns of our candidates for office, take the concerns of our local community, that there was not a cap on the mediation. And I had the opportunity to once again negotiate with Wayland Ventures, and they were willing to do that so that this could be a city-friendly development agreement.
Yeah, well, the reason that I voted against it last night is because we've talked about this. I don't think the hotel should go right there. I think it should be someplace else. Has nothing to do with Venture. They're a great company, Hall of Fame company. Nothing to do with that. It's about where it's going. But let's move on, since that last piece you just mentioned. People have made references to how much the city businesses will benefit from the development in the TIF area. Absolutely, I agree. All of the business will benefit from any development in the TIF area. But do not misunderstand the argument here. The argument is we want benefits to all the business in the city. However, the greatest difference that may occur with the placement of a hotel in the city block area, three points. One, the area that hosts many of our festivals in our downtown, from Barbecue on the River to Fall Festivals, etc., will be altered completely. Two, the daily and seasonal parking will be altered completely. Three, however, the owners of property within a block of the proposed development on the corner will probably have their property value increase tremendously. You said, Mayor, that I respect each and every one of you, and I will continue to do that regardless of where we land on this topic. During the COVID-19, we should be glad that we have a business that says that they still want to do business and invest in downtown. As stewards for the City of Paducah, we have the responsibility to consider this and realize that sometimes the best intentions can fall short. If for some horrible reason, and 2020 has shown us that things can come out of the blue, we rush onto this contract amidst the protests of so many citizens and the unsure day-to-day changes of COVID-19, our governor's daily mandate orders that we follow to the letter will impact our financial stability, city, the state, and our nation, as well as our country. If for some reason there is a work stoppage, we will have right in the middle of our downtown area where all of these things that I mentioned before takes place. It will be horrible. It would be there. It would be horrible. So here's the deal. Mayor, you stated a couple of weeks ago that you were the only one sitting in this elected body right now that has spent over $1 million in downtown. And you have put your money where your mouth is, and you are vested in downtown Paducah. You stated that you were the only one of the voting members that had skin in the game. Now, you said that. And okay, there's a problem. There's a problem with that statement. And you just talked about how you were in the room negotiating this deal. There's a problem. There's a problem because I get it. You are doing what you can do to develop downtown. You buy property, that's great. But here's the thing. You are privy to information that most folks, the majority of the people that live in this city, aren't. You briefed on in executive sessions. You're negotiating deals for this property right now.
Commissioner,
I'm listening.
I'm going to have to stop you.
Why is that?
Because I understand what you're trying to do right now.
I'm just reading.
It is highly inappropriate and highly wrong. Let me have a moment to take up for myself because you are sitting there accusing me, and that is not okay. My husband and I'm not using the information to serve this city for my own gain. That is 100% false. My project has been completed for over 2 years, Commissioner. I don't have an investment interest in anything downtown except the project that I've already completed. There is no way that is true. So I do not appreciate you trying to drag my character through the mud right now. I don't understand where that's coming from, Commissioner. I couldn't understand
the statement that you made a couple of weeks ago.
My statement was that my husband and I have invested a lot of money in our downtown and we care about it. And we are supporters of the project, just like all the other business owners that have called me are supporters of the project.
Absolutely. But there's a difference between you and the other business owners. Do you not understand? Do I need to read the definition of conflict of interest?
Commissioner Abraham, I believe her project was completed long before this even happened. And I think this would have been a conversation that you could have had in private.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what? That's fine that you believe that. The comment that the mayor made a couple of weeks ago, I don't know where that came from, but I'm responding to what she said
That comment was not directed at you personally like you are doing to me right now. You are defaming my name in public right now, Commissioner, without any evidence, without any details, without having a conversation with me first. This is inappropriate, sir, and I'm going to call the question so that we can take a vote.
I have the floor. You gave me the floor.
Well, I'll call for the question then. I think.
I have the floor. I was recognized by the chair with the floor. And until I'm finished, I will hold on to the floor.
Commissioner.
City Clerk, is that correct?
A motion can be made to call the question, which would need a second and a vote. And then if there's a disagreement there, you can call the question, second, vote, and if that is approved, the question will be called.
I make a motion to call the question. I make a motion to call the question.
Second.
Will you call roll, please, City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
No.
Commissioner McElroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Harless?
Yes. The question is called, and City Clerk, will you call roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Abraham?
No.
Commissioner McElroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor Harless?
Yes.
Mayor Harless, you're muted. Mayor Harless, you are muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Can
Okay,
hear you now.
excellent. All right. City Clerk, would you read item, where are we? 5F, please.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky approving a First Amendment and extension to right of first refusal between the City of Paducah, Kentucky and Paducah Riverfront Hotel with respect to a public project authorizing the execution of the First Amendment. This ordinance approves and authorizes the execution on behalf of the city of First Amendment and extension to right of first refusal agreement dated November 4th, 2015 between the City of Paducah Riverfront Hotel, between City and Paducah Riverfront Hotel, the developer, as to the real estate owned by and generally located at 501 North 3rd Street, Paducah, McCracken County, Kentucky. The First Amendment amends and extends the expiration date of the original agreement for 2 more years and amends developers' commitments under the agreement to allow more flexibility in the type of full-service accommodations for transient travelers and tourists to be developed on the real estate.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions about this item before we take a vote?
I have one.
Okay.
The developers, Lingate, entered into an agreement with the city a few years ago to build an hotel, and we made certain provisions to enhance that. We offered the old nursing home property. I think it was for like $10, something like that. They built a hotel. We had their the agreement first refusal for the old nursing home parking lot, nursing home property, and we did that. They did what they said they were going to do. We did what we were going to do, and that agreement expired in July. And then they came and asked for not a new agreement, but an amendment. And I don't see why we just didn't draw up, if we're going to draw up anything, a new agreement and not amend that one. Also believe that property is a valuable piece of property. We should hang on to it. we could still extend that first refusal to the hospitality group there. And if someone wanted to come and build a hotel there, we would give them first refusal. And if they didn't want to do it, then we moved on. I don't see where it is in our best interest to put a price tag on that at $300,000. We paid $200,000 for it, to put $300,000 price tag on it when that everything in this corridor is going to be increased in property value as we move forward with the development of this corridor here. So to me, we don't have to do this agreement. It would be in the city's best interest to hang on to that property.
I'm happy to repeat what we said last night. This is a very successful developer in Kentucky, in several cities. He has local developers that develop that with him. He has expressed the interest to have the first right of refusal on this property. And I think that we should honor that relationship and that partnership that we have had with him. If another developer comes along and wants to buy that land, then we simply tell Lingate, we have someone else that's going to buy it and build a hotel. If they either have to build then or give up that first right of refusal or give it up for the next developer. So we don't lose by allowing them to have the first right of refusal. We gain a lot with a strong partner that we have had, and we don't need to lose that partnership.
So if we hang on to the property,
we are hanging on to it. We're not giving it up.
What's the $300,000 for?
That would be if they decided to buy it. And then if they come back and say that they're going to build a hotel, we can negotiate if we want to give them the land like we did last time.
I don't see anything in that agreement that says they could buy it and then not sell it to someone else.
I talked to the city attorney that did this contract, and she assured me that is not the case.
In her opinion.
I did as well. She said the agreement that for the sale would have the particulars in it. This is simply a right of first refusal. It does not.
Did you call her and ask her that question, Commissioner Abraham? Because I did, concerned about that.
There's not a lot of particulars in the agreement that we're getting ready to vote on.
Those would be in the sale. Those would be in the sale agreement.
I think this is a bad deal for us.
I think it strengthens a relationship that we have had that was very positive. We wanted that hotel when the Holiday Inn came in.
Absolutely.
And I remember being here when Glenn Higdon came to Paducah. It was during a quilt show, I believe, to look at our community and look at that site and decide if he wanted to come here. He committed to coming here, building a Holiday Inn. He had just built the exact same hotel in Owensboro. If you've been to Owensboro at the Holiday Inn, you're going to see what he built here. He got local investors to be involved with him, and he has been a good, solid partner with us. And
Absolutely.
I can't imagine why that we would want to walk away from that relationship with him if he wants to have the first right of refusal. If we have another developer that comes in that wants to build that another hotel there, then Glenn Higdon can say no, but he has the right to say yes, and that pushes his hand to build it.
So why? I mean, that's great. Everything you said, I agree with.
Well, good. I mean, it's an easy.
He's been a great partner. We've been a great partner. It's a great company. No one's debating how good or not his company is. That's had nothing to do with it. And
I would say you are by not wanting to give him that first right of refusal. I think that absolutely is calling into question that we don't believe he's going to do it. So we want to have somebody else. Somebody else can come along if he doesn't want to build it.
So we're just hanging on to it.
We are hanging on to it. It's ours.
We're not offering it to anyone else, right? So I think our relationship with Lingate at this point is pretty solid.
We shopped that land around for about 9 years, you and I you were on the commission longer than me. When I came on, we were all involved with another developer that was coming along, and that didn't happen. And then
That was a
all of a
debacle.
sudden, Glenn Higdon had built the Holiday Inn in Owensboro. He had his plans. He came to Paducah. He fell in love with that site. He found local investors, and he built
Yes.
up the hotel that we had been trying as an administration to get in this community for a very long time and had not
Yes.
been able to do it. So now, why would we do that to Glenn Higdon? Why would we say we don't trust you?
Why are you?
Saying if we don't sign the agreement with him?
This has nothing to do with Glenn. Of course we trust him.
Yes, it does. This is about us in that same company.
Yeah, and so, okay, you know what? I in my opinion, I believe that our relationship with Glenn is solid. And if we decide to, you know what, we're going to hang on to this. First refusal, okay, that's still on the table. So where is it that we're disrespecting him?
But not signing the agreement. He's asked for the extension.
Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion to call for the question.
let's call for it.
Second.
I think we'll just call roll if that's okay.
That's great.
Call roll on item, I think this is 2F.
Commissioner Abraham,
No.
Commissioner McElroy,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Harless.
Yes. And City Clerk, would you read item 3A for us, please?
Proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance approving the final report of the Paducah Planning Commission on the proposed zone change for property located at 401 Walter Jetton Boulevard from R3 Medium Density Residential Zone to B3 General Business Zone. This ordinance is summarized as follows. Rezone property located at 401 Walter Jetton Boulevard from R3 Medium Density Residential Zone to B3 General Business Zone classification, and amending the Paducah zoning ordinance to effect such rezoning.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have our planning director on tonight. Ms. Tracy, do you want to give us an overview of this item?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the commission, city manager, and distinguished guests who are listening and watching. On August 3rd, 2020, the Plan Commission heard and discussed and recommended approval of an application to rezone the former Walter Jetton High School, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. That rezoning would be from R3 to the B3 district. And if Mr. Chino would be so kind as to put up on the screen the first slide. What you see here are pictures of the facility taken and provided by the applicant, which is the Marion Group from Louisville. The Marion Group has quite an extensive history of renovating historic buildings, particularly schools, but they've also done other historic buildings as well. If you would go to the next slide. And they're proposing to renovate the Walter Jetton facility as well. These are images of what they hope it will look like when they're finished. And if you could scroll down a little bit further, Mr. Chino, yes, you'll see that that would also include the renovation and reuse of the beautiful Symphony Auditorium. If you please go to the next slide, Mr. Chino. Thank you. The Walter Jetton High School is actually a campus of 5 buildings. The buildings that are in green, the green areas, would be reused for and renovated into 60 residential units of a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. The light blue area would be the facility, the community service facility that would accommodate arts administration, education, training, as well as some limited performances. And this would be the office and working area for the Paducah Symphony. It's kind of full circle for them, and they're very happy to make that full circle. There would also be another arts organization in the performing arts that would be occupying the building. And these two arts organizations, which would be partnering with the Marion Group, who has a history of successful partnerships, to basically create what is like an arts incubator situation. And just so you know, that activity does fulfill the strategic plan, item number C2, which is to recognize, promote, and encourage the creative industry growth. This proposal would also fulfill the strategic plan N2, which encourages, incentivizes, and supports more housing options throughout the city. I bring this up because this is also a wonderful example of an adaptive reuse of one of our wonderful historic assets. And Mr. Chino, if you could advance to slide 9, I would greatly appreciate it. One of the key things in a rezoning petition is whether or not it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And on this slide right here, you see the future land use plan. The brown represents the buildings. The red represents commercial activity, and the purple is more industrial or institutional activities envisioned by the plan. Over in that purple is basically the Board of Education's bus maintenance facility and the Paducah Tillman soccer field, which, of course, because this used to be the high school. There are a number of houses and single-family residential located to the south, but this is a transition area between the institutional industrial activities located on the west, and to the north is some office and mixed in with some multifamily and apartment complexes. And then it transitions down to the south into more single family. And as a transitional use, the renovation of an existing historic asset is a perfect fit for a mixed use endeavor, which is what they propose. Because of the almost spot on compliance with the comprehensive plan, and the care taken by the Marion Group in this proposal to accommodate parking when there is performance activities. And because they will be reusing this existing building, for those reasons, the Plan Commission voted to send a recommendation recommending that you approve this rezoning. And as your staff, I fully support that as well. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have. In addition, Mr. Jeremy Dyer is on the line as well in case you have questions from him as well.
Hey, Tamara, can we have Jeremy kind of introduce the Marion Group for the board, for some of those who might not know him?
Certainly. Jeremy, can you unmute?
Hi. Thank you, commissioners, mayor, and city manager for having us tonight. So Jeremy Dyer, Marion Development Group, we're at 1801 Payne Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40206. I don't know if that's a requirement here, but in Louisville, usually state the address, but it's just a habit.
Good habit.
Yeah, so some background on Marion Development Group. We've been in business over 23 years. As Tamara was saying, we have specialized in several historic rehabs 3 of which are old schoolhouses similar to this, 2 in Louisville and 1 in Northern Kentucky. We've done a couple of religious institution buildings, and some industrial buildings, I believe a mill, an old mill in Louisville. And so somewhere around 15 historic rehabs total. We've also done some rehabilitation and some new construction, mostly in apartments. And also, as Tamara said, we do have a history of working with nonprofits, just as we plan to do here in Paducah. One of our, I guess, sort of claim to fame is we've partnered several times in some of these old school buildings with an organization called Family Scholar House, and they specialize in providing housing and to low income single family parents who are enrolled in higher education. And it provides them an inexpensive place to live while they're going to school. There's on-site daycare, and the daycare has a focus on secondary education for their children as well. So it's a generational educational gap filler, if you will, for lack of better terms. So that's a little bit about us.
Thank you.
You mentioned daycare, but this facility doesn't have a daycare in it?
No. That was just saying that that was in our partnership with the Family Scholar House.
Okay.
And the similarities are that they would both have community service facilities. So they primarily serve low-income individuals, and the public, as in the Family Scholar House, they could enroll their kids in the daycare, so it doesn't just have to be a residence. Here, the focus is on the arts and not necessarily secondary education for single-family parents. So here, we're promoting the arts and, I guess, building entrepreneurship skills as well in artists.
Great. Well, daycare kind of stood out to me. I didn't think I had seen that, but that's something that our community desperately needs, is more daycares in our community. But I love the whole look of it and the arts. I was very familiar with the symphony when they performed there. I know they don't plan to. I think one thing that we want to make sure that people realize is they're not moving their full performances there, but they
Correct.
will be a partner with this.
That's correct. Yes, this will be the basement. Actually, I don't think it's visible on any of these slides, but the basement underneath the seating that you see there, there's actually quite a bit of space from the back of the stage up to the front of the building. There's a basement space, mostly just concrete flooring and piers. I would say the ceilings are probably 8 to 9 feet tall, so there's quite a bit of space, and they'll move their office space down there. And they'll also have some classroom space where they can teach like individualized lessons.
I don't know if anyone has had a chance to see yet, but the Symphony did make a video announcing the academy that they will be operating out of this building. And, I wanted to make mention that, and Jeremy, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the investment in this community. It means a lot to us. What I'm excited about for the Symphony and the arts piece of that is there actually is a requirement based on the project and the way you're putting this together that there is a focus on low-income families, even in accessing the programming that the Symphony will be doing and the other arts programming. So I know a lot of people who run nonprofits in our community in the arts say that they want to see us make sure that we level the playing field and make sure more people have access to the arts. So that's very exciting to me. I have a question for you that I have heard people ask me this question, and I'd love to hear it from you. Anytime that you're doing a project, you guys have done multiple of these projects where you're coming into a building that's already has residents in it. Will you talk to us about your respect and your sensitivity to the current tenants and how you plan to help those tenants transition while you're under construction?
Right. Yeah. Moving is definitely difficult for anybody, especially in these times. So I can't share specific details of relocating or moving tenants about because we don't have them nailed down quite yet. And I do want to address the tenants first before we make some public information. And we have plans to go down there and meet with the tenants in 3 to 4 weeks and discuss some of the details once we work out some of the construction. Some of the questions for us to be answered are how long is it going to take? If you all were to look at this, what's on the slide now, Building A is the only occupied building. All of the other buildings have been vacant for several years and are deteriorating. So Building A does have 21 tenants on the first and second floors. And we have sent notifications to them to let them know that the project could possibly happen. And we don't want to get the cart before the horse and say that we are absolutely going to do this and there's absolutely you're going to have to move until we get through things like the rezoning process. And we have more certainty that the project will definitely go through. But typically the way these projects work is you either try to move people throughout the units while you're doing the construction, or you have to move them off site for some amount of time and move them back in if they choose to do so. And again, it would be up to them if they want to move back. There's no mandatory thing making them stay in the building. But also with saying that in this situation, since those other buildings are vacant, it doesn't give us an opportunity, and also because Building A is almost fully occupied, it doesn't give us a lot of room to move people throughout the building while construction is going on and get it done in time. So we do think we'll probably have to, if everything goes as planned, we would have to help, and we would provide moving services. We would pay for the movers if they had to pay anything over their current rent while they were living in another unit somewhere to wait for the construction to finish. We would have to pay for the excess rent that they would have to pay. So they would not be out of pocket any more than they would be now while the construction was going on. But again, we do, unfortunately, it's a pain in the butt for anybody to have to move. So we would, try to make it as painless as possible. We have a property management group that specializes in this type of housing, and they've done this several times. So they'll help us through the process, and we will hope, find a place that's as nice or better than where they're living now, and again, pay for moving expenses.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Dyer or Ms. Tracy? No? Okay. Thank you for being on here with us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And we're going to move into comments from the city manager.
As I mentioned before, Madam Mayor, before the meeting started, we do have a monumentous occasion occurring tonight. The Bob Leeper Bridge is being set right now, currently as we speak. So hopefully before nightfall, the bridge will be in place. I'm looking forward to the day we will be able to take the Greenway Trail all the way from downtown Paducah out to the county park. It's going to be magnificent.
Commissioner Jones just sent me a video, actually, of it, so I can't wait to watch. I'm sorry that we're missing it, but it's a very important moment. I'm very, very happy that we also are getting the chance to honor Judge Leeper for his service in public service for multiple decades. He served our community, so that's a great thing. Any other comments from the commissioners tonight?
I'm really excited that the music garden is fully installed right now, the music playground in Noble Park, and even some children have been on the instruments already. I think we still lack the sign dedication of the sponsors of it, which will be like a music stand, so children can get up there and pretend to be directing the music playground. It's going to be a wonderful thing, encouraging more activity in our park. And I'm thankful to the Paducah Garden Clubs who have supported that and individual members as well. It's been a great private-public partnership and something we will enjoy for decades to come.
Well, thank you for your leadership, Commissioner McRoy, in making that happen. I know it was your brainchild and you saw it all the way through. So congratulations.
Very fun
wait for the ribbon cutting someday.
Yes, either. It's coming.
The only other thing I was just going to mention to the commission especially, and I mentioned this last night, is I'll be reaching out to each of you and asking you for your thoughts on putting together a policy that can help guide us on when we come back in person for our meetings and when we do our virtual meetings. So I'm going to be reaching out to you. I'd ask that you be thinking about that. What are those kind of thresholds that you have in mind that you would like to see in such a policy? And that way, our community, our local media, and even ourselves can have a little bit of a guidance on when we might go back in person and then we might have to go back virtually. Unfortunately, I don't think that there is an end in this pandemic right now. I think we're all hopeful that we're going to see a vaccine in the coming months, but we're probably still fairly far away from that happening. So I think the more clear we can be with each other and with this community about how we will conduct our meetings, the better we'll be. Any other comments before we move into public comment? We have two members tonight that would like to make comment before we finish.
Yeah, I just wanted to use this time to my conversation earlier, the statements I were making. It appears that there was a conflict with your statement earlier, and I was just bringing that up. And so it's nothing personal, not mean-spirited, but there is an out for that. That's the reason we fill out these financial interest sheets as we run for office. And sometimes that bumps up against we're serving and we have this information and it appears. That's why we fill that out. So, but there's an out for that. I mean, you didn't have to vote for that. You could recuse yourself from that, but you chose not to. So it is what it is.
Moving into public comment, Chris Hill, you are on deck for discussion about the city block.
All right. First of all, thank you. I get to follow that statement. So, yay. Okay. So I'd like to, first of all, thank everybody for your service. It's very difficult to do public service with all the things that happen and with everybody with Facebook. Everyone has a microphone now. And first, I'd like to say that I am for the city block project. I'll admit I wasn't for it at first because honestly, I thought it was too good to be true. You have a local Kentucky investor wanting to put over $20 million into our area. And it just seems like, what's going on? It just doesn't seem like it's good enough. It seems like, what's the catch? And so I've truly reached out to many leaders and business owners in the area. I'm a business owner myself. And even though the plan isn't perfect, some people may not like the design, some people may not care for the location as much, but the main thing is I think we should keep, we have a developer who wants to put over $20 million into our area, and it makes perfect sense to keep that developer happy and going forward. So I think a lot of people are saying, what are we afraid of with this particular development? And so, the big thing is, there might be something better we can use the property for. And this project has been public knowledge since at least the fall of 2018. And during the last year and a half to 2 years, if another developer was going to come forward to have an option with the property, I feel that he or she would have done so already. And so we have somebody here, and we should strike the iron, strike while the iron is hot on this. So just quickly in summary, I am for the city block project. I believe this is a great opportunity for the city with very little long-term risk. Worst case happens, development stops, put it back to parking lot. It's not like we have to demolish buildings and clear it off. It's already a parking lot. It can be put back to a parking lot very quickly. And we have direct spending of $30 to $60 million for our city. And I think that would be very unwise to basically say no and to delay this. And so I know the vote has already happened, but do you want to be the commissioner who voted no to an investment of $30 to $60 million for downtown Paducah? Because if you vote no to this proposal, you are stopping progress for Paducah. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Next up, we have George Bray.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Harless and commissioners. I've expressed mine and many other citizens' concerns about this agreement, that it does not provide the most benefit to the city at this time. However, it became clear after talking extensively to the developer, the city attorney, and some on the commission that this project would be approved. The concerns I've expressed on my part and that of others are very well known by now. Many of those concerns came about after reviewing the proposed agreement that has been discussed extensively tonight. One of my concerns is the potential exposure the city has relative to potential remediation costs. Thank you for amending the agreement and allowing my input. I do believe it offers us more protection. Overall, I do believe this work has been done with good intentions for the city, and I don't believe anyone has done this for personal gain. If elected in November, and if I and the next commission inherit this project, I will manage the relationship with our developer to the maximum benefit of Paducah. There will be multiple points along the way where the city can influence outcomes, including the design of green space and parking. There are potential long-term benefits to Paducah with this project, and as mayor, I pledge to work to maximize these benefits, reduce the risk to the city, and produce the very best outcome for all the parties. Thank you for allowing me this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you everyone for participating, and I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Nice.
Meeting adjourned. Have a good evening.
Mhm.